When you heard that song slowly fade in on Disney Channel, you knew that your next couple hours were figured out and that song would be stuck in your mind for the next week. There are always a handful of movies that define your childhood, and some of those movies hold up fairly well as you get older, and some, well, not so much. Holes, directed by Andrew Davis, falls into the former camp. Holes is as 2000s as it gets. It's almost shocking that there isn't a Smash Mouth song somewhere on the soundtrack. However, there are songs that are spiritually pretty close. To go along with the music, we get the slow shutter shots, which should be mainstreamed again, in my opinion. I mean, how can you not love them? And even from a pacing perspective, 5 minutes in, and the story has been established. Nowadays, it probably takes Stanley 15 to 20 minutes to arrive at Camp Green Lake. Now, one of the most common things you'll hear about Holes is the movie should not be as good as it is. There were some extremely talented actors casted for the film, but you'd be forgiven for thinking, oh, well, they must be in the market for a new house, a la Michael Caine. But nobody phones it in for Holes, and I'll talk more about the performances in a minute. But even from a direction point of view, the movie is about fate and making good on errors of the past, and the way the movie is shot plays to those themes. We get incredible wides of the wasteland that the boys are trapped in, which sometimes are contradicted by the next shot, but who cares in a movie like Holes? And on an emotional level, there are moving internal moments when the characters stop and recognize the changes taking place. One of my favorites is when Stanley looks to the stars and says,
I feel lucky.
there's something about the way Shia delivers the line that I really like. It's one of the many lines in Holes that I quote on a regular basis. The very first character Stanley meets at Camp Green Lake is Mr. Sir, who's probably the most memorable part of the movie. John Voight, I mean, what can you say? You can tell he was having the time of his life as Mr. Sir. He straddles the line between cartoon character and realism perfectly. He's hilarious, everything he does is interesting, but he never becomes unbelievable. And that's an achievement not every actor could have managed. We all remember the story about a magical place where it never rains, it's iconic, but I love the scene between Stanley and Mr. Sir at night, where he fires his revolver at everything that moves. His facial expressions and movements alongside the score add up to comedic genius. The director really leans into the comedic aspects of Voight's performance, and for good reason. Dr. Pendanski, portrayed by the brilliant Tim Blake Nelson, is the perfect complement to Mr. Sir. They sort of have a good cop, bad cop routine going on. And his demeanor is remarkably similar to a few history teachers I've had. He just seems like someone who'd give a PowerPoint presentation on the Revolutionary War. Pendanski is a great character because of his contradictory behavior. On the one hand, he calls the boys by their first names and offers decent life advice.
You screwed your life up, Stanley Yelnats. And it's up to you to fix it. It's not going to be.
But when it comes to Zero, he's extremely cruel. More cruel than even Mr. Sir and the Warden. That duality makes Pendanski an interesting foe for Stanley and Zero. The trinity of antagonists is completed by Ripley herself, Sigourney Weaver, who accepted the role because her daughter loved the book. And she is phenomenal. There's a lot of build-up for the Warden, and her reveal is hard to forget. As a kid, I was expecting a cynical old guy in the mold of Mr. Sir, but the reality turned out to be far more interesting. The Warden is a tragic character. I think the movie's most effective flashback is when we see her with her grandpa on Christmas, digging holes in an endless ocean of dirt. That short sequence explains everything about her. The treasure obsession was passed down like a disease, and you could argue that it's less about money for the Warden than it is about freeing herself from the obsession. The Warden and Stanley find themselves in nearly identical situations, but Stanley breaks the chains with friendship and compassion. The Warden tries to use brute force and only further damages her life. It's a good message for kids, and Weaver does an excellent job portraying a person who's been hardened by the hand dealt to her. Now, as a kid, there were a couple random aspects of Holes that, for whatever reason, stuck in my head. For example, when the Warden starts having the boys work on a single project, I actually wanted to join them. I mean, the underground tunnels they create are kind of awesome, and it seemed like a fun place to play tag or something. To this day, I get bummed out when they go back to digging their normal holes. Another memorable scene happens after Stanley gets the nickname Caveman, making him a legitimate member of the tribe. And Shia comes out from the side with the music playing, clapping his hands. There's something about it. The first time I watched Holes, I thought to myself, that is one cool guy clapping his hands for no reason. If anybody felt the same thing, let me know in the comments because I'm afraid I'm alone on that one. The other boys at Camp Green Lake are two-dimensional for the most part. They have distinct personalities, but there's not enough screen time to make any one too complex. Many of the actors do have great comedic timing, though, and there's a looseness to their interactions that make the camp feel authentic. My favorite camp member has always been Squid. For one, he delivers the movie's best quote.
Hey, look! A cloud!
I've quoted that line on way too many scorching summer days, and I also like his dark sense of humor when someone suggests that maybe Zero and Caveman would survive.
Yeah. Maybe my mom will stop drinking and my dad will come home.
From a thematic perspective, the movie focuses on universal questions that have relevance for everyone. Like, what are you willing to sacrifice to fit in? How should we face the unfairness of life? And how much control do we have over our fate? These are all compelling questions worth thinking about, and a key reason why Holes remains an interesting watch. Now, it would be a lie to say Holes is perfect. Childhood idealization can only go so far. Rewatching the movie, you can see that the editors had trouble weaving in the flashback sequences. Sometimes there's only one scene at Camp Green Lake between flashbacks, which does hurt the flow of the story at times. I think 10 minutes shaved off the movie would have done it a lot of favors. The soundtrack, which is for the most part amazing, does trip up a couple times for me, in both cases during Kate Barlow flashbacks. When we see her fall in love with Sam, they just slap on a conventional love song, mix in some slow motion, and call it a day. There is something charming about how 2000s this love sequence is, but it's a little much nowadays. And then after Sam is killed, Kate Barlow becomes a ruthless Western bandit, and the song that's played over her crimes, I Will Survive, it doesn't work. It sounds like a Carrie Underwood post-breakup song, probably not the best tone for a woman going around killing and robbing people. I suspect they wanted her to seem like an anti-hero of sorts, punisher of the rich and corrupt, but it just doesn't land. So Holes does not succeed on every front, but it does succeed on the most important ones. The two heroes are likable and easy to root for. They also happen to be free solo climbers that could put Alex Honnold to shame. The trio of antagonists are compelling and challenge our heroes in unique ways, and the themes inspire some interesting discussions. So if you're ever looking through old boxes in your basement and come across this DVD like I did, it would not be unwarranted to quote Dr. Pendanski.
I think we got something.
We got something nice.
We got something nice.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe on your way out, and leave your favorite Holes quote in the comments. There are so many to pick from, it'd be awesome to see the top choices. But thank you so much for stopping by, guys. I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe and have a fantastic rest of your day. I will talk to you soon.